Our top story tonight, one bold prediction for every team in the AFC. You see, Breece Hall is the header here. He is the thumbnail for this video. Just wait till you hear the prediction for Breece Hall and every other team across the AFC on Player Profiler today. Division here, starting in the AFC North. And if you haven't noticed, Kenny Pickett has been balling this preseason. Kenny Pickett is legit. I said this all the way back last year. I announced it in my debut on the Mind of Mansion that Kenny Pickett is officially a starting quarterback in the NFL. He is, at worst, the Andy Dalton Meridian. But as we see him evolve in year two, and I know it's just preseason, I get it. But as we see Kenny Pickett play more and more, he looks better and better. He doesn't quite have true Konami code upside, but he's in that Joe Burrow range where it is Konami-ish. Kenny Pickett can run the ball. He scored multiple rushing touchdowns in games in the past. Kenny Pickett is going to break out this year. And he might not finish as a QB1 in fantasy football, but by the end of the season, Kenny Pickett will be a top 12 quarterback in Dynasty, passing players like Jared Goff and Russell Wilson and Kirk Cousins and all of those older players. Maybe even passes Deshaun Watson if this preseason, Deshaun Watson started out good in practice, then it reportedly has been pretty rough as the offseason has gone on. So won't be surprised to see Kenny Pickett pass Deshaun Watson, Daniel Jones, all of these more borderline quarterbacks. Kenny Pickett could easily pass them, could easily become a quarterback one in Dynasty by this time next year. Moving on to the Cleveland Browns, though, Cedric Tillman has been a boss in the preseason. Only has a couple catches because he hasn't played that much, but the first game, 2 receptions over 30 yards. Second game, 2 receptions, 50 yards. Cedric Tillman is the real deal. He is the wide receiver one from the Tennessee Volunteers, better than Jalen Hyatt, who hasn't looked too bad in preseason either. He's got some pretty nasty speed, but Cedric Tillman is the true outside wide receiver. And it's a little bit of hyperbole for Randy Moss to say that he is the best wide receiver in this class, but Cedric Tillman will end the season as a starter for the Cleveland Browns. He will pass Donovan Peoples-Jones on the depth chart. Look out for Cedric Tillman. Now, of course, he'll still be behind Elijah Moore and Amari Cooper in the pecking order, but as a third-round rookie, just passing Donovan Peoples-Jones by the end of the season, DPJ walks in free agency, and Cedric Tillman is a full-year starter next year. Cannot wait to see what's in store for Cedric Tillman. He will be starting for the Browns by the end of the season. And he's not the only rookie receiver in the AFC North that is going to dominate, because Zay Flowers at every stop, every training camp clip we see, the man just moves different. He is already an elite separator, and he's got the 4-4 wheels as well. Zay Flowers can outrun you. He can make you miss. He can do damage as a deep threat. He can take the short little slants or the little crossers to the house. Zay Flowers is going to be the wide receiver one for the Baltimore Ravens. He's going to lead the team in targets, receptions, touchdowns. Not touchdowns. Dell will beat him in touchdowns. Among the receivers, Mark Andrews still the true alpha of this passing game, but Zay Flowers will be the wide receiver number one, will lead the team, receptions, targets, yards, and he will lead all rookies in receptions and targets and yards. Zay Flowers is quite possibly the most underrated player in Dynasty rookie drafts throughout this offseason, because he's going to score more points than Jackson Smith and Jigba. Jackson Smith and Jigba playing behind Tyler Lockett, who isn't dead yet, despite what some people want to think. They want to crown JSN right away. Zay Flowers obviously going to do more damage than Quentin Johnston. Jordan Addison dealing with a concussion so far, even though he's looked pretty good in preseason. We're going to see Zay Flowers as the wide receiver 1 for the Baltimore Ravens, and we are going to see a true breakout with him leading all rookies. Can't wait to see what's in store for Zay Flowers, and I bet you cannot wait to see what's in store from the Podfather.
Hey, it's the Podfather of great news. The 2023 draft kit is live. It is world famous. Why? Because it is the best resource for winning fantasy football championships that exists. There are rankings and cheat sheets for every format you can imagine. We have projections both at the team level and the player level. And wherever you are, you can click on a player, open them up, and see in-depth written analysis about what to expect in fantasy football from that player this year. And then you can click on the team, and you can get even more in-depth analysis, all the drivers of fantasy production, both in a positive and negative direction for that team, including a signature trend. And the graphics are incredible. So these team insights, they give you the team-level projections, the vacated targets, the vacated air yards, and that one dynamic for each team that you need to know when making decisions on draft day. And we added a bunch of features. Individual cheat sheets for Theo and Billy and Dario. So you could take your favorite analyst and download their personal draft cheat sheet. And then in the commissioners section, also brand new this year, Memphis Young lays out everything you need to know to manage a league, do's, don'ts, tips, and what the more innovative fantasy commissioners are doing this year. That's presented by Trophy Smack. The whole package is presented by the Fantasy Football Players Championship, the FFPC, Ray Garvin, Derek Brown, the best minds in the industry contributing analysis. It's certainly not the most inexpensive draft kit on the market, but it is the best. PlayerProfiler.com/draft kit. PlayerProfiler.com/draft kit. Go get it.
Rounding out the AFC North is Chris Evans. Chris Evans is going to take the Samaje Perine role. We already saw it in the preseason in the first game. He surpassed Chase Brown in the passing game by far, and he's fine as a runner. We've seen as well. Travion Williams has been on the bench. He's been resting up in the cold tub. And in that time, Chris Evans has worked his way into the receiving back role for the Cincinnati Bengals. Chase Brown isn't going to be it in year 1. The pass blocking's not there. It's going to be Chris Evans. Finally, Chris Evans is going to do something in fantasy football, taking the Samaje Perine role. But more importantly, this actually means that Joe Mixon is going to finish as an RB1. That is locked in. The man is a bell cow. He is going to see work in the passing game as well. Chris Evans is just going to be that first back off the bench. Now moving over to the AFC South, we have the Houston Texans, who CJ Stroud has struggled early in the preseason, and the offense has been a little bit disjointed. But one player has stood out, and that is Tank Dell. Tank Dell is going to lead the Houston Texans in receptions, in targets, in yards, but not in touchdowns. Tank Dell a little bit on the smaller side, as we all know. And so it's either going to be Nico Collins or Xavier Hutchinson that leads the team in receiving touchdowns. Dalton Schultz probably actually does, but I meant to say receivers. But Tank Dell going to lead the team in targets, receptions, yards. And Xavier Hutchinson versus Nico Collins to lead the wide receivers in TDs. How about 2 bold predictions for the Houston Texans? As for the Tennessee Titans, this is one that I did not expect based on reports early in training camp. But with Will Levis recently suffering a lower body injury and reports out of Tennessee that Malik Willis might actually be the favorite to be the second quarterback for the Tennessee Titans, bold prediction that Malik Willis will end up starting games before Will Levis does. If anything happens to Ryan Tannehill, whether it's injury, whether it's trade, whether it's benching, Malik Willis, not Will Levis, will be the starting quarterback for the Tennessee Titans. And that is not something I expected to say at all. As for the Indianapolis Colts, this one won't sound too crazy at first, but then you think about it deeper. Anthony Richardson will lead the Colts in rushing yards, which sounds like it could happen. We've seen it from quarterbacks in the past. Justin Fields led the Bears in rushing yards. Lamar Jackson led the Baltimore Ravens in rushing yards. But then you remember the Colts have Jonathan Taylor. But Jonathan Taylor will not play 17 games for the Indianapolis Colts, whether he holds out, whether he is traded. Anthony Richardson will rush for more yards than Jonathan Taylor if and when he is traded. He is going to be leaving the Colts with a committee backfield. Evan Hull's going to get his work. Deion Jackson's going to get his work. Zach Moss is going to be ineffective in his work, but he's going to get the touches, which is why Anthony Richardson ends up leading the team in rushing yards. And because of that, Anthony Richardson is going to be a QB1 in fantasy football. As for the Jacksonville Jaguars, I've talked about this ad nauseum, that it's going to be a revolving door at wide receiver 1 for the Jacksonville Jaguars. It is going to change week after week after week. It's going to be someone different all the time. Because of that, now, Calvin Ridley will score more fantasy points total than Zay Jones, but they will have an equal number of wide receiver 1 in fantasy football weeks. Calvin Ridley, Zay Jones, both probably going to have about 4 weeks as a wide receiver 1 in fantasy football. Christian Kirk, probably 4 or 5 as well. But Zay Jones is absolutely being slept on. The spike week potential from Zay Jones when he is facing the third cornerback from most teams. Ooh, can't wait to see Zay Jones, especially in best ball. He is going to pop. Now, Calvin Ridley will outscore him. So will Christian Kirk. But I'm talking about weekly wide receiver 1 finishes. Zay Jones and Calvin Ridley will have the same amount. They will both have 4 weeks as a wide receiver 1 in fantasy football. Moving over to the AFC West, we have the Las Vegas Raiders. And my bold prediction for the Las Vegas Raiders is Josh Jacobs skipping multiple games. It seems unlikely in this new world of running back contracts under the CBA, but Josh Jacobs actually seems like he doesn't want to be there. Actually seems like he may be taking a principled stand. He still wants to hit free agency in 2024. And so he'll return well before the 6-game deadline. But Josh Jacobs will skip the first 4 games of the season for the Las Vegas Raiders. Zamir White will be the RB1 over that span. But Josh Jacobs, he's the one holdout. He and Jonathan Taylor, so I guess 2 holdouts, that really seem like it is dug in deep. And I think Josh Jacobs and Jonathan Taylor don't play a full season for their respective teams. Taylor via trade or holding out with injury, and Josh Jacobs just holding out because he hasn't signed his contract yet. As for the Denver Broncos, by the end of the season, now to start the season, it's going to be Jerry Jeudy as the wide receiver 1. We saw last year that Cortland Sutton is not the alpha we expected. He's a fake alpha. Jerry Jeudy is going to be commanding targets. But as time goes on, and as Marvin Mims gets more and more experience with the Denver Broncos, he will finish as the wide receiver 1 for the Denver Broncos. Over the final 6 games, he will be the team's wide receiver 1 in targets, in yards. He will just become a true blue alpha. Marvin Mims is headed for a Brandon Cooks type rookie season, a season where he finished the year as a wide receiver 2. Mims might not hit the wide receiver 2 overall by the end of the season, but down the stretch over the final 6 games, he will absolutely be a wide receiver 2 in fantasy football and the wide receiver 1 for the Denver Broncos. As for the Los Angeles Chargers, they've got a wide receiver 1 overall, or at least candidate. But Keenan Allen is going to be a wide receiver 1 in fantasy football this year. He will finish as a top 12 pass catcher. Might not be that bold based on what we saw from him down the stretch. He finished as the wide receiver 4 over his final 6 games when he was finally healthy. Keenan Allen still has the juice, was only behind Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and A.J. Brown. Those are pretty good names to be behind, pretty good company to be in. And that is the same company Keenan Allen will finish this year in. Keenan Allen wide receiver 1 in fantasy football. Outside shot at being the wide receiver 1 overall, but a wide receiver 1 top 12 in fantasy. That is coming from Keenan Allen. Book it. Quentin Johnson fans will be disappointed, but not surprised based on the fact that we are player profiler and we are correct. But moving on to the champions of the AFC West, the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, obviously, they're going to win the division. Patrick Mahomes is going to win the division with Travis Kelce and Andy Reid and just being the best quarterback in the NFL. Patrick Mahomes will win the AFC West. But that's not a hot take. The hot take, the bold prediction for the Kansas City Chiefs is Kadarius Toney. Kadarius Toney is going to miss some time this season. They're hoping he can be back for week 1. I don't think it's going to happen. I think Kadarius Toney is going to miss a couple weeks. And because of that, he's obviously going to be outscored by Sky Moore in fantasy football. But also because of that, Justin Watson will outscore Kadarius Toney in fantasy football in 2023. Justin Watson working as the wide receiver 3, ahead of Rashee Rice, ahead of Richie James, right behind Sky Moore and Marquez Valdes-Scantling. We don't care about MVS in fantasy football at all. Never have, never will. But Justin Watson is going to be a flex player this year with the Kansas City Chiefs, outscoring Kadarius Toney, and he's completely undrafted. No one cares about Justin Watson, and they absolutely should. Moving over to the AFC East, the second best division in the AFC. Obviously, the AFC North is the best with the Bengals, the Ravens, the Browns, the Steelers. The East is clearly number 2, though. The Raiders drag down the West. Broncos are going to be okay this year, but Chargers and Chiefs, those are the heavyweights at the top. But in the East, we've got the Jets, who are going to be in the playoffs. Not going to win the division. That's going to be the Bills once again. But the Jets and the Dolphins both probably going to make the playoffs. Patriots are going to be fighting for a playoff spot. And the Patriots are going to be a much improved offense this year. It's going to be a rotation at wide receiver 1. It's technically Juju, but Devontae Parker, we're still hearing hype about. He'll have some games where he scores the touchdowns and goes over 60 yards, probably 2 of them where he finishes as a wide receiver 2 or 3. Juju going to score some points, but they're still missing that touchdown scoring threat, that big body. It doesn't seem like that's Mike Gesicki. Mike Gesicki has not performed the way that the Patriots had hoped early in training camp, but Hunter Henry has, and Hunter Henry will finish as a top 10 tight end in fantasy football. He is going to be making his money in the end zone. We talk about it all the time. All it takes to be a tight end 1 in fantasy football is 3 receptions and a touchdown. That pretty much guarantees that you are a tight end 1. Hunter Henry's going to have a lot of weeks where he scores a touchdown, goes for over 30 yards. He's going to spend a lot of weeks as a tight end 1, and he is just going way too late in drafts right now. No one cares about Hunter Henry because the Patriots offense is just so bleh. So bleh. As for the Miami Dolphins, everyone's drafting Tyreek Hill in the first round. Everyone loves Tyreek Hill. But what if Tyreek Hill ends up being passed by Jalen Waddle this season? Nah, I can't commit to it. I tried. I can't do it. Tyreek Hill going to outscore Jalen Waddle. Tyreek Hill absolutely worth his first round status. But a bolder prediction is that Raheem Mostert is the RB2 roster for the Miami Dolphins. I thought it was Jeff Wilson, but now he's a little bit banged up. And I've always been of the opinion that they are going to ride the hot hand. Now Devon Achane's a little banged up with a shoulder injury. Jeff Wilson's a little bit banged up. Raheem Mostert is the healthy running back. He still has the breakaway speed. Raheem Mostert starting to look like he is the running back to roster for the Miami Dolphins. Keep an eye out for that. If Jeff Wilson heals up, then he's going to have a lot of weeks where he is the RB1 for the Dolphins, but so is Mostert. Devon Achane. It's a mess for the Miami Dolphins, but right now, it looks like Raheem Mostert is the guy. Over to the Buffalo Bills, this one isn't that bold, but we've been saying it for quite a while. Dawson Knox is going to score more fantasy football points than Dalton Kincaid. Gabriel Davis will too. Unfortunately, Gabriel Davis is going to be the second leading scorer in fantasy points in this passing game. Dawson Knox is not the wide receiver 2. Dalton Kincaid, sure as hell not the wide receiver 2. He's not even the tight end 1 for the Buffalo Bills. Gabe Davis is going to be the wide receiver 2. Dawson Knox is probably going to be the wide receiver 3 because Khalil Shakur can't beat out Trent Sherfield, who doesn't matter as a wide receiver 3. So overall, the takeaway is that this is a mess. The boldish predictions are Dawson Knox outscores Dalton Kincaid, and Gabriel Davis outscores both of them and every other pass catcher for the Buffalo Bills, which, again, is a mistake. They should have signed DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins should be the wide receiver 2 for the Buffalo Bills, and they just completely missed out. Final bold prediction. Now, there's a lot of worry now that Dalvin Cook is a New York Jet that he's going to spend a lot of games as the RB1 for the Jets, that Aaron Rodgers' ego will demand that he assigns the starting running back, and he is going to pick Dalvin Cook just because that's who Aaron Rodgers is. He goes with the vet that he can trust. But Breece Hall is just too damn good. Breece Hall can be used as a wide receiver like Aaron Jones. Breece Hall can take what should be a 3-yard gain and turn it into a 70-yard touchdown. Breece Hall can do it all. Breece Hall might start out the season slow, and he should. The Jets are going to have Dalvin Cook getting a 60% snap share for probably the first month of the season. Breece Hall probably going to be seeing 40% of the snaps and touches for the first month. But over the final month and a half, over the final 6 games, Breece Hall will be the RB1, and Breece Hall will be the reason that you win a fantasy football championship.
Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free. This is only possible because of you allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All In Package to continue to make all of this possible, to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.